This is David Bowser, Athletic Director, Head Football Coach, coming live from Emory Gymnasium this morning with our weekly press conference. I want to open up by saying congratulations to our volleyball team for going 1-1 this past weekend up in West Virginia at a tournament, and then they get ready to have their senior night and close out before the tournament this evening with their last home game. Please come out and support them. We'll start at 6 p.m. Also would like to congratulate the cross-country team, men's and women, who did an outstanding job of competing this past Thursday up in Salem, Virginia, at a very tough cross-country meet, very competitive meet. And I really enjoyed going up there to be able to support both of our teams. I want to give them a shout out for a great effort the whole season. Also want to let everybody know to please be prepared and support this Saturday for the Raleigh Classic against Shaw University at Durham County Stadium. 1 o'clock kickoff, and the game will also be on Aspire TV. We're very excited with an opportunity to try to go out and continue to keep the Classic Cup over here at St. Augustine's University on 1315 Oakwood Avenue. It's going to be a tough ball game. Both of us are coming off of close emotional losses this past weekend, so I think it'll be really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how our kids respond and bounce back from that game. And at this time, I'll open up the floor to any questions.
Coach Bowser, Chris Clark, CBS 17. Good to see you again there. Wanted to ask you first and foremost about how, looking back at it, is this one of these where I know sometimes you take the tape and just burn it, or sometimes you go over it and look at it and see some things that maybe you might have missed the first time? Anything you might have missed after looking at it the second time?
Well, the first thing is I want to say that I want to commend our offensive line and our running backs for doing an outstanding job. You take away the sacks that we had by the quarterbacks. We ran the ball 53 times and we had 199 yards rushing. And that is what you want to have. You want to be able to control that. So I was very pleased with that. After you take away the minus yards, we had 171, but still that's a great number and gives you an opportunity. If you can run the ball, whether it be one back or by committee, for 170 some yards in a ball game, you put yourself in a position to win, and especially when you held the opposition to 60 yards rushing. So I want to commend our defense, the front seven, the linebackers and D-line, because they held them to 2 yards a carry. So I thought that was outstanding. Where we probably came up short, because we also won the turnover margin, where we came up short was we didn't capitalize in the red zone. Wish we could get those back. And then we didn't look as crisp and sharp on special teams. We held them to 0.5 return yards on punt returns, but also to our own detriment, we were negative 0.17 yards on punt return. So neither team really did a lot on the punt return game, but we did block one, which was a positive. And like I said, the red zone was also something that we'd love to get back. So kind of, if there's anything, I'd love to be able to redo some of the special teams phases, even though our kickoff return team did a great job. We averaged starting was on the minus 39. That's pretty good, depending on how you look at it, but that's pretty good for us, because most of the season up until the last couple of weeks, we've been averaging about the minus 25. So we've been able to increase our returns by about 14 yards. And that's a lot of credit to Coach Anthony Barber, who's done a great job of working with our kickoff return team.
I wanted to ask you about the how you guys fared as far as injuries are concerned, and who we might be seeing back towards this game for Shaw, if anybody.
Okay, well, right now, I do not expect us to have Chris Perkins back. We had hoped that, but today we just couldn't get the clearance that we were looking for. So Ms. Knight is going to take the next steps to see what's best for him overall, to see what we need to do moving forward. So I would be surprised if we were able to have Chris this week. Also, one of our freshmen who had been doing a great job for us at the strong safety linebacker position, Antonio King, is definitely probably going to be out this week as well. But what that does is Jerron Hinton, who is a veteran, who's a top-notch football player for us, he started this past week anyway and did an outstanding job. That just means he's going to have more reps. And we'll need Brandon Tibbs, somebody who had played for us earlier in the year, but with the emergence of Antonio King and Jerron getting back healthy, Tibbs's reps were cut a little bit, but he's going to have to be ready this week. And so we're expecting him to be the backup for Jerron this week. So those are the two major injuries. Everybody else is just nicks and bruises. Before I came to a press conference, they were over in the training room getting treatment. So I think this week, outside of the 7 who've been out for the whole season that we lost back weeks 3 and 4, the only 2 that really this week we would have hoped to have had, but we're not going to have, would be Chris Perkins and Antonio King.
And you kind of hit on something with the guys there I wanted to ask you about as far as their demeanor heading into this week. You don't want anybody to take a loss lightly. And I don't think any one of your players is looking at it like, oh, well, we lost. They're not that kind of way, but they always get up for the next one. You want it to sting. How do you keep last week's close loss, because those hurt way more, from carrying over to this week? How are the guys, from what you've seen so far, still early in the week, but to get ready for Shaw?
Well, I think that what I saw more than anything in this morning's meeting, when we did most of our special teams and then our introduction of offense and defense for the week, I saw that there was still some carryover, which I actually appreciated from Saturday, because you could tell in the 10 after the game that there was that edge to both sides of the ball, that they saw how close we really were. And sometimes you got to get to that point where you just finally reach the point where you're just sick and tired. And I think that they had that to them Saturday. They came out today with that same mindset. So that was a positive. Most people be like, well, is that a bad attitude? No, that's not a bad attitude. That's when you reach the point of realizing how good you are and can be, but you just got to do a little bit more. So I really feel like this morning's practice was good. The film sessions were intense. The film sessions were honest. And some people might say they were brutal, but they were needed. Because this is an example of just how close you really are. You lose by a certain number of points, you factor all these other things into it, but when you see how close it is, and then you start pulling this play and that play, because one thing we always tell them is there's only 5 or 6 big plays in a close ball game that make a difference, and we were on the tail end of maybe making 2, and they were on the tail end of making 3, and because of that, that's where your 5-point difference came into that ball game. There's just things that when you can go back and you can point your finger at it, that lets you know. And I think they were really at the point, and came out this morning and showed that they weren't pleased with how Saturday ended, and they knew that we gave one away on Saturday.
Kind of switching gears here to Shaw this week. We'll get to the rivalry part in a second, but I don't think there's any secret after, especially it was 2 weeks back. AJ is going to run the football. That's going to happen. It's not going to be any secret. He's not making any bones about it. And now he's got apparently not 1, but 2 of his guys back there, with Sydney showing up last week. I didn't think we'd see him again. I'm guessing it's a stack the box kind of day, and make sure everybody's in their gap to try and stop Sydney from Brandon and those guys.
Yeah, we got to, because we went back, and when we watched the Fayetteville film and looked at it, you could see that in the first half, Fayetteville did a very good job of condensing that run game. But eventually, when you got a kid like Gibbs and you got somebody like Brandon, they're going to get theirs eventually. We saw that last year when we played them. I thought we did a great job of containing them. And then all of a sudden, Sydney popped that one down their sideline to make the game close again. And those are the things you got to be wary of. Run fits are going to be important. That was part of our focus today. Was we ran a lot of plays at our guys, and we ran it at them fast, because we wanted them to be able to line down and be crisp with it. Because what happens is, when you got a 3-headed monster like they got, because Brandon's there, also you have Brandon, you have Gibbs, and then number 4, I have to go back and see who he was. He got some work on Saturday. So, you got to be really conscious of that right there. And I think that everybody understands, and we've been saying this for the longest, and I've told you this, and you agree, you've been around the CIAA long enough, you got to be able to run the football in this league. And the success that Shaw's had, the success that we've had, is when we've been able to run the football. So the key to this is to be able to slow them down, just like I think they're going to be packing the box, hoping to try to slow us down as well.
I want to say 4 was Fields. I don't want to say
Fields. Okay. Yes, sir.
As far as our quarterback is concerned, earlier in the season, I said, Christian was the guy, but they've kind of experimented with a few folks. Is it better to have somebody back there that's just, QB1, or is it better to have that name and see what they do for preparation for a game like this?
Well, for a game like this, since we're gonna look to stop the run first, we're gonna probably go and pull all of Christian's passes, and then we're gonna pull the other quarterbacks' passes and see what routes that they favor, what formations they favor with that particular person on throwing downs to see if we can pick up some tips, because it's gonna be tough. Because if they wound up rotating quarterbacks in and out, and we dealt with that against Fayetteville, where they brought in two kids that you hadn't had a chance to prepare for, and they get you stung on big plays every now and then. And once again, like I always tell people, a rookie quarterback may come in, or a guy that's never started, and they light up the NFL. But by the time their second year comes, teams have had all summer to figure them out, and they slow those guys down. But we've got 1 week to try to prepare for two guys, so it's going to be interesting. So if it were my druthers, I'd rather for us to just have one to prepare for, kind of like we had with Livingstone. Even though I will give Silas Cruz credit, he did hit two big plays, the screen that he scored on, and then the seam route he threw. I'll give him credit on that. But outside of those two pass plays, which were a combined total of 86 yards, he would have been 9 for 14 for 80 some yards. And that would have been a great, no, 60 some yards. I'm sorry, because he threw for 146. So we would have done a great job of slowing him down. But those two big plays he had kind of took away from that. So yeah, we would much rather be able to prepare for one. But when you've got two, now you're splitting your time, when your defense is having to learn multiple sets and multiple passes, because there are two different types of quarterbacks.
Let me ask you about facing a Shaw team that just came off a loss to Fayetteville. Would you rather catch these guys after they come off a win, or would you rather get them like you're getting them now after having another close, drawn-out battle down at Luther Nick Gerald's?
Well, I'm I'm gonna say this, man. You really can't find a good time to catch an Adrian Jones team, because he does a great job of getting those guys prepared. He does a great job, he and his staff, of finding all your wrinkles, and he also does a great job of just flat out getting his kids to be tough. So, what I would say is, I know that they're disappointed, because they were still, up until that game, still in the race. Would needed some help on the outside of things, but still could have competitively been in the race for the championship. I know that they held on to the trophy for a couple of years, and they'd like to get that back. So there's a lot of factors into this, and just the fact that both of us are so close, and we're in the same city, and our kids all know each other pretty well. It's going to be high stakes, man. And I think that what we have to do is we have to stay within ourselves. We're going to have to approach it the same way we approach John C. Smith, and that we approach Livingstone, that we just got to be the best us. And if we're the best us, we'll be fine. I felt like we were the best us for 3.5 quarters against Winston-Salem State. Now I just want us to come out this Saturday and put together 4 quarters, because that's what we've yet to do. We put together a good 3.5 quarters against Smith. We put up a good 3.5 quarters against Winston-Salem, and this past week we put up a good 3 quarters and almost 50 minutes, of a ball game, but we just couldn't close it out. And that's where we have to continue to grow and develop. But I can remember before, we used to talk about, we played well until halftime, or we played well through the first minutes of the third quarter. But that's where I see the progress, is that we're getting into the fourth quarter. Now we got to learn how to close out ball games, and we make the big plays to change a game, like people have done against us. We have to be able to make the big plays to close out a game.
One last question. You kind of touched on it there. I was going to ask you to expand on it just a little bit. Some people might look at this end of the year game. It's not for the CIAA division. It's not for, it's for a trophy, obviously, for the Classic, but it's tough to explain to someone that's not seen it, not been there, seen the intensity of the rivalry. And afterwards too, it's kind of crazy, because all that intensity and rivalry turns into handshakes and hugs most of the time. For somebody that's never seen this, is there a way to sum this up to explain why it's so brutal intense?
Well, it's just almost like you got those cousins and siblings who you compete with, and you have an understanding like this, and it's real simple, that, hey, I can poke at you, I can pick with you, but nobody else better mess with you. And that's the kind of the way it is. We have a great deal of respect for each other. Both institutions work well together. But the most important thing is, we want to have that competitive nature. We want to challenge each other to be the very best. And we both, man, you know, from a recruitment standpoint, a coaching standpoint, if both of us had our wishes, we want St. Augustine's and we want Shaw University to be the two best programs in the CIAA, not just the South, not just in this area, but we want our two schools to be the very best, because then what that does is that means we can keep getting more and more talent to come to our schools because they understand the importance and the intensity of our rivalry. And so afterwards, whatever happens after the game is all said and done, the love is there. We're going to be able to accommodate each other when we need to assist one another. That's never been an issue. But at 1 o'clock, when we kick that ball off, we're going to be trying to do the very best we can to knock each other out with that punch to build our programs even more.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Best of luck on Saturday. I'll see you guys there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you so much. I'll open the floor up if there's any other questions. If not, I'll go ahead and close out with a statement. I'll give you a second if there's anybody else has any questions. Okay, so once again, as we begin to go on into this week of our last regular season football game, I want to thank everybody for their support. I want to thank our kids, the parents, our coaches, our support staff for being there, our administration. Been not the kind of season that you want or you expect, but the one thing that I can say is we look back over this and process it. We've definitely began to grow and evolve. A lot of things, the injuries, really slowed us down a lot. We played a very tough schedule at the beginning of the season. And then the same exact thing that we told everybody is that the CIAA South is a tough physical conference. And we've seen that because there's been upsets. You've seen teams who started slow, finish strong. I think Winston-Salem State's on a 3-game winning streak with a chance to play Fayetteville this week. Shaw may have stumbled a little bit along the way, just like we have, but still they took Fayetteville down to the wire, had a chance to win the ball game at the end. So I just want folks to know that this is a very competitive conference. The South doesn't get the same respect at times that the North does because of the flash and the glander up there. But the one thing about it is our teams and our schools play very good football as well. So we're excited about this Saturday, which is rivalry Saturday across the conference, where you see all the matchups tend to deal with the rivalries. You got Smith and Livingstone, first Black college football game. That rivalry renewed. Winston-Salem and Fayetteville State, which used to always be the game to determine who would represent the South in the CIAA championship. You have us and Shaw. You're only 2.5 miles away from each other, 5 minutes apart. Rivalry, and then you go up to the rivalries in the North as well. But I just want to encourage everybody to continue to support the CIAA as a whole, continue to support college athletics as we transition through this time and era where people are just trying to figure out where does college athletics fit into society. It's a very key piece, because a lot of what these kids experience through all these sports will help prepare them for life. The disappointment in sports, the highs and the lows of sports will help you prepare for things that you experience in life. I told our kids this morning, if this past Saturday was the biggest disappointment that you ever experienced in life, you're a blessed human being. I said there's going to be a lot of things that this is going to prepare you for, but the one thing it should prepare you for is to get back up off the canvas when you feel like you've been knocked down. So I just say to you, continue to support all athletics, continue to support St. Augustine's. Come out tonight, support our volleyball team. We'll be starting basketball within the next week. We'll talk more about that next week. Indoor track is about to get started. I think they will be running a meet at some point in the end of November, and then they have one on December the 3rd. So there's a lot of excitement still going on here on Oakwood Avenue. Just because football season is wrapping up doesn't mean that our other athletic programs do not continue to need your support. And we definitely would love to see you here tonight for senior night for volleyball, and just continue to watch St. Augustine's as we move forward as a department and a university. And thank you guys, and we'll see you over in Durham on Saturday as we prepare at 1 o'clock to kick off against Shaw University. All right, thank you.